And then so I'm really careful about where I race, and I am trying to do more modern races. And when we do old cars, I go to series where the authenticity of the car is very, very important, like Classic Le Mans, Spa 6 Hours. And I like to do endurance races because in 40 minutes people take a lot of risks. But if you're going to be out there for 4 or 5 hours, like
Sure.
Sebring 12 hour historic or the 24 hour Daytona historic, people tend to drive kind of within their means. So
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Smoking Tire Podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Off the Record. You know what Off the Record is because I talk about it all the time. They help you fight tickets, right? If you get pulled over, you don't plead guilty. I understand the instinct. You just want to get it over with, make it go away, whatever, but it won't go away. That's not how it goes away. If you want to make it go away, you got to get Off the Record. offtherecord.com/TST or download the Off the Record app on your iOS and Android device and use code TSTPOD. 10% off with that coupon code. Basically, once you have Off the Record, all you then have to do is snap a photo or scan the ticket that you get, write a couple sentences about what happened on the roadside there, and Off the Record will assign your case to a qualified attorney in the jurisdiction where you got that ticket. They will fight that ticket for you. That could mean talking to the prosecutor. That could mean going to court. Point is, you don't have to do nothing. Then, when they're done, they call you and they say, look what we did for you. Yay. They have an unbelievable success ratio. They're not perfect. No system is. But man, are they on point. So go to offtherecord.com/TST or download the download the Off the Record app and use code TSTPOD. Make an account, have it ready in your pocket. That way, if you get pulled over, you're not panicking and you will know what to do. Again, offtherecord.com/TST or code TSTPOD on the Off the Record app. Do it. Today, folks, we are very fortunate to be joined live via iPad from his office in Detroit. It's the CEO of Ford Motor Company, Jim Farley. Not only is he Chris Farley's second most famous cousin, he is a very, very powerful and interesting man who is a real car enthusiast. He's one of us, folks, and after you hear this conversation, I think you'll understand that he has a really hard job, and satisfying everybody is very, very difficult. In this conversation, we talk about vintage racing because that's what he likes to do on the weekends. We talk about a world exclusive where he reveals that he used to sneak off from his office in his lunch breaks and go lap the Nürburgring in company vehicles, which rules. We talk about electrification. We talk about autonomy. We talk about big cars and small cars and how America is not a monolith when it comes to their buying habits. True pleasure to have him on the line here. Jim Farley, the CEO of Ford, is with us for the Smoking Tire Podcast.
he's at a different budget than me. So I'm racing like Bob Bondurant's Cobra, and he's racing Senna's, Honda
Yeah.
MP44.
I mean, still, like, yeah, I actually want to. First off, we're now live. We are now it. You're on.
Okay,
So thank you so much for the time in
sure.
advance. I know how busy you
Sure.
are, and we really appreciate it. And shout out to Levine and Saeed and everyone who put this interview together. It's a real treat to have you, Jim.
Same
And
way. Yeah.
this is awesome. I got like four things I want to cover with you in these 45 minutes. And the first one has absolutely nothing to do with the business of Ford and everything to do with your being a racing driver now, because CEOs that are racing drivers are objectively cooler than CEOs that are not.
Yeah.
And so what made you decide to be a racing driver? Was it just a hobby that got out of hand?
Yes. Basically, I was on the trajectory of most people that I knew living in Southern California when I was working for Toyota. I did triathlons and mountain biking, and It was before I had children, and I was part of the Cobra Club, and I had a road Cobra that I had kind of mortgaged my house to buy.
Presumably a real Cobra then, yeah?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, a barn find, and you know, and I bought it for like 100 grand, and it was the most expensive thing I'd ever bought, and it got to be valuable, six or $700,000. And I had a friend in the Cobra Club who a had one of the original USRC race Cobras, and he got sick. And he was going to pass away, and he called me and said, "Jim, I like you, and you really get cars. You understand the history of these cars, and if I don't make it, I want you to buy my Cobra." And I said, I don't have the money to buy a USRC Cobra. And he said, "That's okay. I want it to go to the right person. Just sell your road car, give my wife the money, and but
See, I
you
got
have
an
to
idea.
promise."
Here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna sell yours and take
Yeah.
mine. And give my wife all the money. This is a good plan.
And it got a more interesting story, but in the end, he said, "I really, really, really want you to get the car ready because I've never raced it because he didn't have the opportunity of being sick, and he said, I need you to race it." So I had no intention of ever racing, and I was just, working on old cars and buying old cars and flipping them mostly, and so I went to a 3-day performance school. Literally the weekend I joined Ford 15 years ago, and I really loved the school, and I thought, I would live up to my commitment to him. So I raced the car at Road America. I
No
won
pressure.
some, yeah, and that's where the car was crashed. So I did it on purpose, and I I met John Lamb, who became a really close friend of mine, journalist, and Peter Egan, who's from Wisconsin. The journalist I really admired when I was growing up, who taught me all about road racing, and Phil Hill and all the other stuff that all American road enthusiasts, should know about. And anyways, I won a trophy. I did well in the race, and I've kind of been slowly but surely ramping it up since then.
Yeah. Was that the
Adding,
car I read about that was an ex Ken Miles car?
yes,
That's awesome. I mean, not just a proper race car, but
yes,
and particularly, after Ford versus Ferrari, and
yes.
and everyone seems to know who Ken Miles is, whereas they didn't for a while. But here it is. We got a photo of it from a Road and Track article from a couple years
There you
ago.
go.
Oh, that's a
96.
hot looking car.
Yep.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I bought a 427, and got that ready and flipped that. Then I bought a GT40.
Yes.
And
You were
but
on the
Yes.
Ken Miles trajectory. You really
I
were
was.
kind of
I
right
was.
there. Yeah.
I
It's a good
didn't
thing you
have
got out
Ford
before
Motor
the
Company's
Series 4.
budget.
Yeah.
I had to negotiate my budget with my wife, and but did okay in all the cars. But my real love is my 2-liter car, which were kind of like the LMP2 cars of the 70s and 80s. And I have two of those, one in Europe and one here. And then most recently, since we changed our motorsport strategy to be a customer-based racing strategy for road racing on road, to follow the Porsche model, for the sustainability of our racing. I got my bronze license for IMSA, and I started to race modern cars now, like the Mustang Challenge here in Mid-Ohio this weekend.
We got a great photo of your Mustang Challenge car. Not the photo of you in a sim. It's a Terlingua Racing Team livery,
Yes.
which
Yes.
I'm extremely for. I love the
Yes.
Terlingua Racing Team throwback. It's really, really cool. And man, would I be nervous as a customer racing against the CEO of the company. But also, if I had problems with my car, I'd be running over to your pit stall and yelling up the right tree. When you're racing vintage cars, particularly valuable stuff, Cobras and GT40s, what level of commitment is that to to racing? I mean, are you really going 10/10ths? I mean, everyone tells tales about how dangerous it was to race cars at those times, and here you are, an important man doing something that's practically uninsurable for your job. How does that work?
I guess there are two aspects to answer your question. The first is I want to be a respected racer by my peers on the track. I don't want them to like me or, we don't have to be friends, but I want them to be able to trust me when we're together in Eau Rouge or Blanchimont at 170 miles an hour with two GT40s. And so I I race aggressively, but I don't take stupid risks that a lot of other people can afford to, because I want to have a good reputation. That's the most important thing for me. And I never can pass anyone on the straight or a very few in the same class because I never want to be accused of having some special engine that Ford built.
Oh, what a bummer.
And so that's no fun.
You do have Ford's budget now. You could build all the cheater motors. Yeah.
But on the other hand,
That's
you
very
know,
funny.
I do it because I like competing. I miss high school sports and I love competing. I love beating, you and me together on the course and we're close in ability and who's going to get there first. And
Yeah,
I
and you can only
love,
pass under braking. You
yeah.
can't. Yeah.
So I guess I would say I race at courses where I know it's hard to get hurt, like Spa, an FIA course with gravel traps and, you know, safe places.
Yeah.
The only exception would be Goodwood. And so so I'm really careful about where I race, and I am trying to do more modern races. And when we do old cars, I go to series where the authenticity of the car is very, very important, like Classic Le Mans, Spa 6 hours. And I like to do endurance races because in 40 minutes people take a lot of risks. But if you're going to be out there for 4 or 5 hours,
Sure.
like Sebring 12-hour historic or the 24-hour Daytona historic, people tend to drive kind of within their means. So yeah, sorry, it's a long answer to your simple question, but I guess I have to be thoughtful about it.
Sure. Well, that totally makes sense. And there are some vintage racing series where replicas are allowed, and people get a
Yes,
little more smashy.
they
And
do.
if you don't want that to happen if you're out there in a genuine historic GT40 or a Cobra.
I'm really glad you mentioned that. That is a very important point. I've been to a lot of those series, and I almost never go back. I don't want to be, racing against a '69 Camaro with 892 horsepower, and 360 huge tires. I just don't want to do that with a NASCAR transmission.
Yeah.
Again, I really believe that if I'm going to race a GT40 or a Cobra, it has to be not ventilated discs. It has to be just like it was.
I totally get that. As someone who likes to spectate those races, I'm glad that a series exists where you don't need to race a $20 million car, and
Yes.
we can still get from the sidelines the vibe of what it's like to be at a vintage race. So like I like that exists, but there should be a distinction so that everyone is really aware of what they're getting into, risking themselves, their cars, etc. So it makes sense.
Yeah.
How valuable do you think it is to your job running Ford to be involved in motorsports? I mean, it's Akio Toyota has been there, and obviously we talked right before we went live about Zach Brown, although he's not running the road car division. So how does it come into play when it comes to connecting with enthusiasts and bringing out enthusiast products?
For me, it's one of the most important aspects of being successful. Not because of the reason people think. First of all, it keeps me incredibly humble. As a CEO of a big public company, you're constantly around people who tell you that you're smart and we're going in the right direction. And I'm self-aware enough to know that when I go to the racetrack, there's going to be someone with a Super Duty who said, "You let me down and I'm pissed off." And that's one aspect. So, and I'm around car people, and I love car people. Car people fill up my bucket after a week of finance meetings. Car people fill up my bucket when we have to get out of the car business in India, or restructure China, or close 4 plants in South America. All things that we had to do the last 3 years to, be a profitable company. And those days are not enjoyable, to fire people and restructure businesses. I hate it, but it is my job, and I have to lead the transformation of the company. And so when I go to a race weekend like the one here in Mid-Ohio, it just fills my bucket up. I'm talking to my mechanic. We're talking about setting up the car, the dampers, another pound of air pressure in the front tires, and I'm back to kind of filling up my bucket of why I love our industry, why I'm talking to you.
Does it then make you want to sit in on the engineering meetings for Mustang and for Raptor and for stuff and not just, be very high level, but actually get into the nitty gritty of here's what's in the brakes and here's what's in the gearbox and here's what's in this? Or are you able to sort of go, okay, we have people that do that?
I'm definitely in the second category, but I guess every CEO that you're going to meet has a different profile, and the profiles are very situational. As a CEO of transformation of the company, digital products, low CO2 powertrains, new global competition from China. I frankly don't have the luxury of really getting involved in things like that. I have to do my job well to make sure Ford wins in this new world. I just don't have time to do those things. What really is rewarding for me is to work on my '73 Bronco with my son or daughter on the weekend, change the oil pan, get on the floor of the garage when it's 20 degrees out in Detroit, and get covered with grease, and look in a finance meeting on Thursday and I still have dirt under my fingernails. My own little dirty secret. I think. I don't want to micromanage. I've seen many senior leaders or CEOs micromanage the product creation process, and I think that's really, really dangerous. But my team knows that I'm absolutely uncompromising when it comes to good product. They know that I'm going to see a fakey product. They know that if the design isn't well done, they know it's not going to be a good meeting with me. Um, but so I hold them accountable for outstanding products, but I'm not going to tinker in their business because that's time I should be doing something else.
Guys, got to take just one break. For today's show is sponsored by Tinker. Tinker's a new mobile app offering one-on-one live help for auto DIYers, letting them work with Tinker's certified automotive experts instantly via live video chat for quick answers for all car topics. It's like having a pro mechanic in your pocket for all those burning car questions. Whether you're a seasoned hobbyist with a weekend build or just trying to save some time and money doing some auto repairs yourself, Tinker has you covered. All the experts are vetted and have professional mechanic experience or ASE certification. I personally am looking to purchase a new vehicle and possibly do a project card build and giveaway, and I am really going to need Tinker's help on this because the last time we did a project car giveaway, we had to pay people for everything. It cost us a ton of money we didn't get to keep. And this time we're going to have to do a little bit of our own maintenance, and I cannot be trusted. So Tinker will need to be on the line for me. Right? So head over to the Apple App Store right now, download the Tinker app, like having a pro mechanic in your pocket, whether you're trying to avoid going to the mechanic and getting a big bill, or whether you're just trying to help finish a weekend project that's been hanging in there, collecting dust in the garage. Tinker is here for you. It's like having a pro mechanic in your pocket. Get the Tinker app on the Apple App Store right now. And thank you to Tinker for supporting the Smoking Tire Podcast. Sure. Speaking of outstanding products, let's talk about the very high end of Ford's pricing plan, really. So, when we had the '04 to '06 GT, which is one of my favorite road cars of all
Great
time.
car.
I mean, just
Yep.
the best. It was not really a commercial success, and it was sort of like only appreciated later when very
was.
quickly they stopped making cars like that. And
Yes.
it's still one of
Yes.
my favorite cars I've ever driven. I'd love to own one day. I no longer
Yeah.
can because they're so expensive. So then we came out with the 2017 to 2021 the GT, the homologation car, street car, and that was a commercial success, most expensive Ford ever, and now we have the Mustang GTD, a 330 something thousand and change Mustang, which I got to see in person at your little place there in Monterey last summer. And it's crazy. So what is Ford thinking? What's the plan here? What are we doing, Jim? This is nuts.
I mean, the bottom line is people like you and me, we grew up seeing the 73 RS, the GT3 RS, GT2, GT2 RS, GT4, GT4 RS. We saw the German brands real, and especially Porsche, on road. And by the way, the most exciting thing going on at Ford is probably for me the off-road enthusiast moves we're making. But on the on-road side, I really respect Porsche, and I don't think that Detroit or any other company really ever got what they've done. And I believe that Mustang is in a magical time when we had Mach-E and allowed us to stay in the business and make an affordable V8, and that we can build out the Ford Mustang brand in a way that has never been built out before in the past. And basically, I and the team wanted to make a GT3 RS competitor, but do it in a Detroit way, our own style, with our own Mustang swagger. It is not similar to, what Mark and the team are doing in GM. It's a pony car. It's not mid-engine. And I watched Aston Martin and many other great brands do a good job with these kind of products. And we're going to race it. And I didn't want it to be kind of like GT and the GT before it, which you love and I love. It's hard to go to dinner in those.
Only because of the doors. The first one is perfect for going to dinner,
Yeah.
except for the doors, which I
Yeah, you
respect
just
why they
whack
did
your
it.
head
But
all the time.
man, you
Yeah.
just get like a line in your
Yes.
head here.
Yes. Even if you own one. And
Yeah.
so I think that's what people love about the GT3 RS and the GT3 is that you can go to you could go to work, you can take a Sunday drive, you can go out for dinner, and it doesn't feel like it's some super snotty person when you show up. And it feels good going slow, going fast on your favorite corner, on ramp, off ramp, on a track day. It feels good, and it doesn't feel like a supercar kind of experience. That's the car we wanted to do. Rear transaxle, super lightweight, is carbon fiber body, but still have that Detroit swagger. And let's just make this an interesting discussion. It won't be the last thing we do.
It's interesting because, on the one hand, if you really, really care about your lap times, and you know this, you could buy a real race car. And
Yes.
for a lot less money, you could go buy
Yes.
an LMP3 car for probably half of what a GTD or a GT3 RS
Makes
costs.
sense.
In fact, I
Yes.
said that in my GT3 RS review in a very clear way. And now that we have all these racetrack country clubs becoming a thing, you have your condo or you have your garage, and you never have to drive the car on the street. So it's the sort of value proposition of Mustang isn't necessarily there with a car like this because it's super expensive. But it turns out, I think people really do want a race car that they can drive on the street if they
Absolutely.
choose.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Last weekend, I was with my kids. I have a '90 Celine, and we've done a bunch of stuff
What year
to it.
Celine is it? I'm a
90,
huge. It's a
1990.
1990. I'm such
Yeah,
a
no
Celine nerd. I
stripes,
love these
dark
cars.
dark red, super under the radar screen and radar, and we go out to Woodward, and I mean I'm just looking around, and I mean the whole Woodward is just filled with cars like that. They're
Yeah.
filled with cars of people doing downshifts and drifting and I going. I mean, yes, you are exactly right.
It's just the
But you can go to
GTD is
dinner in it.
such a crazy car, though. I mean, it's actually I don't think you can tell in photos how big it is. It's because it's Mustang's not a small car to begin with,
No.
and then the added size of the wide body kit and the splitter and the wing. In your garage, when we saw it at this launch, I was like, this thing is like the size of a Tahoe. It's big.
Yeah.
It's a big,
It's
big car.
big. Did you see the video this week from the ring
I did,
on
and
Nürburgring?
I heard it
Yeah.
from 6 blocks away. Are you pulling rank and getting seat time in this thing? I mean, I know
No,
you
no,
said you don't want to micromanage, but how can you not
no,
want seat
no,
time?
no, no. The story behind that one is pretty simple. We're there to prove something. Let's put it that way. Over the next couple months, and we got Dirk Mueller, who's won Le Mans,
Yeah.
behind the wheel there because we got something to prove. Because the best in the business go to the ring, not just to develop cars. Some do, but we're going there to prove something. And we're going to Porsche's backyard, so we got to bring our A game.
You've driven the Nürburgring though before, right?
Yeah, actually, I ran Ford of Europe, and it was a pretty tough time. And lived in Germany, and I used to go on my lunch hour.
Nice.
And you get on with a credit card, and it was only about 40 minutes from round trip. I could do 40 minutes, so I could do 2 laps and get home. So I'd
Oh,
leave at 11:30.
that's
Go.
kick ass.
I take a Fiesta or a Puma or something stupid, and I would go. I'm going to my apartment, and no one ever knew, and I'd go there, my credit card, and go for lunch, come back,
And
and
you're just like
I was
ringing
like,
out like a 1 liter.
yeah. And the funny thing about going to the ring on the middle of the week, is you anyone who's done it, you look for the people in the lawn chairs because you know that that's the trickiest part of the course because they do it. They make the bratwurst. They sit there in the lawn chairs because they want to see accidents.
Yeah, they're just waiting for you
So
to crash. Yeah.
yeah, so as soon as you see the lawn chairs and any kind of greasy smoke from bratwurst, you got to slow down.
I know like the three corners that you're talking about. I've been there a couple times. I know exactly
Yes.
the spot. Yeah, yeah. What a great lunch break though. I think you just got
Actually,
A plus
I've never
cred as
told
a
anyone. I've never told anyone that, even my wife, that no one
YouTube
knows
Shorts.
that I did that.
Cut it.
Yeah.
there's you got we got.
That's
I knew
really
we'd get a
funny.
headline
You
out
guys
of
are-
this. It only
you
took us
guys are the
16
best.
minutes to get a headline out of that. Yeah, there we go, and it's a good one. So when do you think we will see customers driving GTDs? When will us journalists get to drive a GTD?
We start going into production probably early next year, the end of this year, to get the quality right. It'll be somewhere in that zone. And so we'll start, we've obviously made a few already for the ring and for development. Now we're going into mass production. All the suppliers are ramping up as we speak, and that'll all come together. And the team, Larry Holt and the team, will be producing them at the end of this year, early next year.
Crazy. When I saw it in person and I saw 325 section front tires, I was like, "Oh boy, this is gonna be a handful on the street, but it's gonna be nasty." Oh man, and it's have you had to make a lot of compromises to get from the car that we saw last year to a workable, sellable product, or is it pretty much
Zero.
going to look zero?
Zero. We worked on it for 2 years before we showed anyone.
Okay.
When I became the CEO, the program basically got approved. We were working with Larry and Multimatic team, and we had sorted out all the components, and there were some like DRS, DRS system. We're not allowed to put on the race car, but we want to put on the road car. So there's a bunch of things on the car that actually we're not allowed to put for WEC and IMSA on the race car that are on the road car. And there was some arguments within the company about those, including the fender vents on the picture you showed. A lot of people didn't think we need to vent the air coming into the front. brakes in the front profile, and those are completely functional. You know, it's basically an open fender, and
And
that
even
was
if
a
you didn't have to,
huge.
they look pretty awesome. I mean,
Yeah, well, it's expensive, and we probably would make more money if it was just a regular flared fender, but we didn't do that. So, we had a lot of those arguments over the last 2 years, but basically the engineering was done. So, when we showed it to you, that's we were not doing the typical car company thing where we're like, and it'll be this, and then when you see it, like, well, wait a minute, it's 80% of that. No, actually, we had engineered the car.
cool. Can I talk about electrification for a minute?
Of course, yes.
I was a Mach-E customer, and I only say was because I leased it for 3 years and I returned it last month, and I really liked it. It's a great car.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
congratulations on building a really nice car there. And it seemed for a couple of years that we were in this sort of full charge to electrification, fleet wide, every OEM, every car is going electric. And then all of a sudden this year, everywhere you look, it's like, well, electric sales numbers are down, the market's a little soft, competition's heating up. And it's a very complex issue to navigate. I am totally sympathetic to people who are making cars and whatever. So what do you see as the next 10 years, 15 years of an electrified automotive space?
Okay. So first of all, it's a very important topic because whether, irregardless of where your politics are or what kind of driving duty cycle you have, the reality is the regulators around the world have picked pure electrification as their bet for carbon reduction in our industry. So whether we like it or not, whether it's the EPA, the Euro, the EU or China, any of the big three, markets that make up 80% of the global car industry, the regulators there are saying, hey, we need to decarbonize, passenger cars, and we're going to do it with the OEMs have to meet tailpipe emissions that are tied completely to full electrification, not EREVs, not plug-ins, not hybrids, but pure electrification. So that's one thing we can't have the discussion unless I set that context. Look, from the customer standpoint, let's just take the U.S. You know, somewhere between 20 and 50% of the customers would save money by buying and driving technically, if you just look at their duty cycle and the connected car data, with a charger at home, they would save money on electrification. And even if resale value has deteriorated with the price declines and insurance costs have gone up because the replacement parts of EVs, even though it's a simpler product, are more expensive. And even if you do all that stuff, the electricity is cheap enough compared to fuel. Even with fuel where it is cheaper. And so, and more importantly than that, you experienced it. The instantaneous acceleration and deceleration on the highway, the convenience of not going to the fuel station and having a full tank every day if you're lucky enough to own a home and your own charger. One pedal driving, the quietness, just the ease of owning the vehicle. There's a lot of other advantages beyond just the nickel and dime stuff. And so we think that there are duty cycles, the way people drive, the frequency of long trips, their garage, how many vehicles they have, what type of the other vehicles, that, a good part of Americans, maybe up to 20% from today's 12%, are going to find electric vehicles very attractive. And the market will grow, but we believe that those customers will tend to own smaller vehicles and they won't take as long trips. And we feel that partial electrification for heavier vehicles, like pickup trucks, like the F-150, especially if you tow, like we do with the F-150 and the Expedition and the Explorer, those vehicles are really bad in full electrification or even an EREV that goes 120 miles and has a combustion engine to power the batteries. And has no traditional transmission. These EREVs, by the way, are the fastest growing part of the global fully electric industry.
Which is an electric
And
car with a backup generator of sorts, right?
yes,
An onboard
yes, that's
generator.
right.
Yeah, yeah,
That's right. And they'll go 120 miles all electric. They have the batteries half the size of a Model Y or a Mach-E, so they're very affordable. The manufacturers make money on them, by the way, and 95% of the trips are done all electric. And then when you want to go long distance, you fill up your car, your tank. Most people would fill up once or twice a year, and you could still travel 700 miles on a tank of gas.
yeah,
Now, you're not going to get the same mileage, and you're going to drive all electric. It's
yeah.
not a plug-in where you're driving a combustion powertrain. Anyways, we believe those partial electric solutions for America, where we tend to have bigger vehicles like pickups and large utilities with 3 rows, we think that those are going to be very popular in the transition and may stay around for 20 plus years,
Yeah.
including hybrids. We believe the hybrid market will diversify. We have an efficient hybrid with Maverick that's just like Prius, but we also have a hybrid on F-150 that powers your house for 7 days. And that Pro Power on board, use of the batteries, we think is appropriate for pickup trucks and for people who camp and to do work with their vehicles. So we really believe electrification is part of the future. We never bet the farm on it. That's why we invested in hybrids 3 years ago. Now everyone's saying, well, Ford's smart that we did that. It's not a decision we made last month. It was 3 years ago. And we believe that there'll be new partial electric solutions, plug-ins, EREVs, and then most of the market will be, the only exception is commercial. Ford is very successful in the commercial market. We own more than 50% of it with Super Duty and Transit on the light duty side. And that part of the market is going electric much faster than the retail. They tend to use their vehicles more intensely. They're 70, 80% used every day. The
Yeah.
economics are much more advantage for them. They do not overbuy batteries. They have depot charging, so they go back to the same place every night. They have
And
repeatable
predictable
cycles.
drive routes and all kinds of
Yes,
stuff like that.
yes.
Yeah,
So,
I love electrification for that. And we took Zach and
yep,
I took an F-150 hybrid with
Power
the
boost.
power boost camping.
yep,
It was
yeah,
awesome. It was so great. It's a
yes.
great product. But here's the question: in America specifically, and I don't think this is much of a problem in Europe. In America, consumers buy for the 110% use case and not for 95% use case. We buy a pickup truck, and yes, people do tow, and yes, people do haul, and yes, there are contractors, but also it's a luxury item, it's a status item, and maybe I might want to move a couch one day. Do you think that we as a country or automakers or everyone need to maybe start to try to convince our customers to buy lighter, maybe smaller vehicles that they need that'll cover 90% of their use instead of 110 or 120% of their use case?
Yes, yes. And not only is it required by the EPA, but we, as we said a couple times at Ford, we started a Skunk Works group almost 2 years ago in the West Coast, separate from Ford, to work on this use case of an affordable EV platform to compete against BYD and Tesla too. And they're not part of Ford, and they were from that Apple and Tesla, and they have a completely different approach to the development of that platform. Because we believe that after our Gen 1 products like Mach-E and Lightning that were great to the customer but not profitable for the company, we needed a radical approach to engineering, supply chain, and manufacturing that was outside of the prejudice of the traditional auto companies. And we believe that that platform is going to be one of the core of our future pure electric solutions. And they'll tend to be smaller vehicles. And there tend to be very good interior package, almost a class above. So a Camry interior and a Corolla size interior, but they won't be those kind of generic segments. But we're still going to make them emotional. I do not like generic cars and trucks. I've sold them most of my life. And I don't want to do that anymore. And I don't think Ford should be a company that sells generic product. And so even without affordable vehicles, they're not going to look like a lot of the compliance vehicles and small kind of, toasters. appliance-like vehicles that are commodities. So that's our bet is exactly in line with you said. For the larger vehicles, we think partial electrification is the right bet.
Yeah, I think especially considering our, not so great EV infrastructure, and I know it's
Hmm.
improving. I mean, they're putting in resources, but people are. It can be stressful to have an EV as an only car.
It is.
It
Yes.
does require an extra level of planning and what ifs and the sort of reliability and availability of charging stations is math that people I think are afraid to commit the time and brain power to. Gas is just so easy.
We have to really acknowledge that, things are changing. Um, you look at Northern California. Well, I worked at Toyota for a long time. I look at their numbers in Northern California. That was their home market for a long time. Their numbers over the last 5 years are down 20%. So are Honda's. Tesla's become the number one brand in Northern California. So America is not one kind of thing. It's a complex market with lots of submarkets and so look at Lightning and F-150. F-150 is the second highest revenue consumer product in the world behind iPhone. No, most people don't know that. It's
Oh,
been
I
the
did not
best
know
selling
that.
vehicle. It's the best selling vehicle in the US for 40 plus years.
Yeah, that I did know. Yeah.
So it's kind of like a, I don't know, Big Mac or something of our
Yeah,
industry.
yeah, yeah.
It's kind of a benchmark. And in California, 85% of our sales are Lightnings or hybrid. And you go just a couple
Is
hundred
it
miles away,
85% in California?
85.
Our Lightnings are
Yes.
hybrids. Wow. I
Yes.
didn't realize it was that high.
And you go a couple hundred miles away in Texas, Western Texas, and it's only 15%.
Yeah.
So America's different. And even with the F-150, you would imagine, but no, in California it is different.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. You were I know you don't have a lot of time, and I want to get through a couple quick things before we let you go. You were quoted in a story recently, basically saying that you think in the next few years Ford will be able to sell a vehicle, a passenger vehicle that features a level 3 autonomous driving system. What makes you think that is a near-term reality?
Well, I think one reason is because we have the talent, the company. A lot of people don't really understand the war of talent has played out in the last 3 years in these companies. People, the media, the journalists, they don't really spend a lot of time kind of handicapping the different talent at the different companies. Tesla has great talent. Ford has great talent in this area of partial autonomy. We pivoted from Argo 2 years ago. We did a hard pivot away from level 4 and level 5 robotaxis, a hard pivot to Blue Cruise and level 3. We've had a team working on this for more than 2 years. We're already Consumer Reports best rated Blue Cruise hands-free system. It's a
Blue Cruise is
gateway.
good. What made you?
Yeah.
What made you and your team go? You know what? Level 4, level 5 is not worth our investment. Let's focus on 2 and 3. What was the
Two,
decision that
two
made that
reasons.
happen?
Two reasons. Because we were spending $1 billion a year on it. Um,
Oh,
there are two. It was.
you can
It's
race
big
a lot of
money.
GT40s for that.
Yes. There are two reasons. First of all, we thought it was a really hard problem. It's turned out to be hard. But number two, we thought regulators would really struggle with how to accept these at large scale across the country, which would be required. And number three, we couldn't make a business out of it.
Hmm.
Even if we could do all the technical solutions, even if the regulators said we want them everywhere in the country, millions of them, we still couldn't figure out how do we make money on this business. And so, but we love the idea of pushing a button on a highway, which most Americans do with their car, and going and taking your eyes off the road and getting 45 minutes back on your average American commute. We love that idea. And we saw Blue Cruise and hands free as the gateway. We got, lane keeping, We have proximity adaptive cruise control. We had all we needed to add was duplicate steering and braking, and a really good high-speed sensor set and really good AI modeling. And all those things are hard. We made a lot of progress with the Argo team that stayed at Ford, and now Blue Cruise is very well accepted. We're on our 20th million mile, I think, and It's a 70% margin business for us. It's shocking to me how powerful hands-free system is for pricing, how much customers love it, and how much they're loyal to the brand when they buy it. And it's not impossible to imagine adding, better sensor set, those AI models to that Blue Cruise system and getting to level 3.
And you're still
And we
talking about restricted use to single direction, divided roads, well-marked, clear conditions, etc., right? We're not talking about back roads and urban areas, right?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm really glad you brought that up because we call that the operating domain.
Yeah.
Where does the vehicle operate? And, weather, sleet, snow, cloudy, mist is very difficult for LiDAR systems and when you're traveling 80 miles an hour. There are systems on the road like Mercedes that are at low speed at 35 miles an hour. Those are very easy to technically to roll out. We could do that tomorrow because there's a car in front of you. And so it's very easy evolution of adaptive cruise control. But when there's no one in front of you, it's a much harder problem. And so they're all kind of different. The weather thing is really hard to solve. But the divided highway is less difficult to solve. Things being parked on the side of the highway is a difficult problem to
Yeah.
solve. So I would
But
say
you could
the
argue that we don't need a level 3 system that works in a snowstorm or a downpour. In fact, isn't it
yeah,
safer to say, no,
yes,
you drive?
yes, I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
And therefore, cars without steering wheels, robo-taxis, urban, fully autonomous urban vehicles, I think are very difficult. And even if you had a fleet of them, you would have to have, when it rains or snows, you can't just say, we're not picking anyone up on Tuesday because it's
Right.
snowing. You have to have a bunch of drivers. And what are they
Right.
going to do? Sit around until it rains?
Yeah.
So, it's a harder problem when you really think about it as a business running a huge million unit fleet of autonomous vehicles. It's even in California, it rains.
Yeah.
And they get mist and they get fog and on those days what you're supposed to not be able to get an Uber.
Yeah.
So we think the level 3 is on a sunny day at the beginning it'll be sunny days, not on ramp off ramp. It's going to be, as you said, divided highway, but the ODD will loosen up over time, and the leading brands will be the first ones to open new ODDs like undivided highway. And I think this will be a huge unlock for us car people. I mean, we are lucky to have a business that is going to give people time back. In a world where these digital products are just consuming more time in our day.
Well, look, I love driving and I love cars and I hate traffic. So I
Yes,
to a
yes.
point, I get this stuff. I just also genuinely believe in safety. And I think that to oversell the capability of some of these systems before they are truly that capable is very dangerous and causes more harm than it than it helps.
I
And
totally
so,
agree with you. Some of our competitors have made promises or have focused in marketing on things that I cannot understand. We've been in business for 120 years. We're only the U.S. company didn't go bankrupt. Our reputation is very important to us. We've had safety issues in the past. We don't want them in the future. You are absolutely right. This is the essence of your reputation because the company is driving the car.
yeah. Yeah, especially with level 3, where the company is
Yes,
literally expected to take responsibility for what happens in
yes,
that system, correct?
yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
Before we do you have like a couple more minutes? You in a
Yes,
hurry?
sure,
Okay.
of course.
We've got our patrons gave us so many questions to ask you. There's like 100 of them. I've chosen the 2 that I would actually like to hear answers from as well. And so Okay. One is about sedans. It says, and we have somehow not copied the questioner's name, and I'm sorry about that. Maybe Zach can find it for the end. In a world where non-American automakers have no issue selling plenty of sedans in the U.S., why does Ford expect us to believe them when they say nobody wants to buy sedans anymore?
We didn't say that no one wants to buy sedans. Sedans are a really popular type of silhouette in our industry in the US. It's very popular. I was the Camry product planner in the early 90s. You're looking at like someone who loves sedans. The reason why
But
we
Ford is not
decided,
selling any sedans in
yeah,
America at the
the
moment.
reason is very simple. We lost billions on them, and we are not in a position to lose billions on vehicles anymore. As a business leader, I don't believe that the company should allocate capital to vehicles that I know we are going to lose money on. And so we decided to create Mavericks, Broncos, Bronco Sports, and all sorts of other vehicles like GTD that will make money. Raptors, Tremors, transit vans, electric vehicles that will make money over time. That is what we do at Ford. It was a judgment call to move out of the commodity part of the market into vehicles that our company wakes up in the morning and does well. And no one has to tell someone at Ford, please make a nice F series.
Yeah.
Like our people wake up in the morning. So to do that. So now over time, as we lower our costs and improve our quality, Ford may have the optionality to enter these vehicle segments. But I will tell you, just like Maverick, most of Maverick customers are Civic and Corolla customers, and they like a pickup truck,
What
and
did
they
Corey
want.
come out of? He came out of a Mazda 3, and he
There
went
you
from a
go,
Mazda 3
perfect.
to a Maverick. He loves his
Yeah.
Maverick, actually. Yeah.
So why would I do a Fiesta or a Focus sedan? Even if I could make money, when I could do a Maverick, that's our brand.
So let me
When I
ask you
joined,
something, Jim. If Ford can't make money at sedans, why do you think? Do you think BMW, Toyota, Mercedes are they making money at sedans, or
well, first of
are
all,
they just what are they doing
Ford
that you're not doing?
Ford could make money 3 years ago when we made that decision.
Oh, okay.
But with the Skunkworks team and other capability, that's something that we're looking at our cost reality, and we're trying to recreate that capability again. The bottom line is sedans are very aero. In a world where batteries are expensive, a super aero car like a sedan or a hatch is a great silhouette for aero.
Yeah.
And so in the world of batteries and affordable batteries, it's a pretty, I'm just saying that if we do one, it's probably going to feel and look and smell a lot different than other people's. We
Okay.
don't want to do generic vehicles. And just like the 2002 was very different than the other sedans you could buy or small hatchbacks. And I love the 2002. That's the kind of car, that ambiance of that car, the first Fiestas that Ford should do if we're going to do that kind of aerodynamic silhouette. I actually don't believe personally, after 40 years of the industry, that these silhouette no, silhouette kind of categories, sedans, hatchbacks, they're all going to merge into, you know, different kind of things.
Oh yeah,
You look at the
SUVs are coupes now. It's
yeah,
so bizarre. It's like
yeah. So how do
the
you
coupe
know what a
wasn't
sedan
cool, so we
is
made that a
anymore?
sedan, and the SUV wasn't cool, so we
Yeah.
made that a coupe. And I'm not really
Yes.
sure where we are anymore. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
So I think you're going to see probably once Ford solves its cost problem and really gets serious about and delivering, and actually we as leaders have confidence we can do that. You're going to see new vehicles that may some people go, hey, that's they're back in the, okay, this is not about gotcha. We're a going business, and we just don't want to make generic cars that look like other brands. We love brands like Mazda. We love brands like them who really don't approach the business with that kind of commodity approach.
Yeah, I mean, Mazda is a good example because they they sort of do this one thing. and they
Yeah.
do it very well. And you can always, when you get in a Mazda and you drive it, you are very aware that you're driving a Mazda. It's actually a good example, and the cars aren't super expensive.
Yep.
Last one, that was Andrew Clark's question, so thank you,
Hi,
Andrew.
Andrew. Thank you for your question.
And last one, Miguel, one of our very regulars here, is actually a Ford dealer tech in California. Says the rumors are that Ford wants to go direct to consumer as opposed to keeping the dealership models. Is that true? And would you be willing to expand on that?
The answer is absolutely. We're not going to do that. We have made a huge, I've been very clear. I mean, we do not agree with that direction. We love our dealers. Actually, we have been number two in the EV business, a long way behind Tesla, but number two for the last 2 years. And the reason is the dealers, not because we went, because we didn't do a direct model. So that tech, please understand, we have totally bet on the dealers. We believe that the dealer model may have to change a little bit. We've had standards for charging. And look, when you bought a Model T, people came in, there was no DMV. People didn't know how to drive a car. And the dealer had to show people, hey, this pedal's for reverse, this one's for high speed. That's what our dealers did. They also were gas stations. Well, it's not so different when technology changes. An e-rev or pure electric, our dealers are back to the same thing, showing people, because we're now out of the advanced customers. We're into the real mainstream customers now. And they are interested in EV, but they're not sure. They're interested in e-revs and hybrids, but they're not sure about them. And our dealers can do what they did with the Model T. And we should provide electricity at our locations. So I guess the model will change a little bit, but it has been for 120 years. But Ford's we're number two in EVs, and we're betting on the dealers.
It's a bit of a challenge, right? Well, you've obviously the EVs have lower servicing intervals, right? So you're going to be
Yeah.
losing revenue by not having, being able to bill out service. And in the beginning, at least, there was a lot of software type warranty issues. I think a lot of the ones on Mach-E have been worked out. But so at least in my local dealer, and granted this is anecdotal, they were a little sort of overwhelmed and flustered in 2021 and 2022, but I gather that's been largely worked out by now.
It has. I mean, EV is a huge majority of our California dealer sales now, and that's starting to happen in Florida and other places. Look what I just said about Lightning, right? And hybrid and F-150. If you're a California dealer, you're going to be selling a lot of Lightnings and Mach-E's, and that's a big part of your business. So, and I think it has taken time for the dealers to get up to speed. But you ask anyone who's owned a direct model company's car what it's like when you have an accident, when you have a mechanical issue with your door closing, or anything else in your car that requires a technician, like the gentleman who asked this question. If you ask them, how did that direct model work for you? And they're going to say, I miss the dealers.
I've heard both. Honestly, I've heard both. I've heard that there are a lot of problems with the direct model, and I've also heard that if the resources are allocated appropriately and there's enough technicians and there's stuff that they can come to your house and fix in 20 minutes, that the experience is quite pleasant. But I've heard both.
Yeah, no, I guess let me explain what I'm saying a little bit. 15% of all transactions at Ford are done remotely now. So pickup and delivery for new vehicles and services, 15% of all things that we do with dealers now are done remotely. They're done at customers' homes. There's no other brand that's as big as us, in the dealer model that does as much in a mainstream brand. We started with Lincoln, now we're expanding it. People don't really understand that. We have 3,500 in the US alone, 3,500 remote service trucks doing service remotely for customers. And I'm saying that when you get in an accident, when you have something complicated that breaks on your car, you need 2,800 dealers in the US. It really is a big advantage. I'm not talking about something like we do every day at Ford that you can do remotely. I'm talking about
Yeah, you
something
mean
that's
you mean replacing real parts and major
Yes.
components, and
Yes.
you're talking about a proper supply chain. That's what you're
Yes.
talking about. Having parts available. That's yes.
and
I
a
see
body
where you're
shop
going.
and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
people that are they're really experienced with replacing parts and or technical problems, with the vehicle where a seat doesn't work and not all of that can be remotely. We do a lot of remote at Ford, probably more than any other mainstream brand. I think for those subcategories that fit into that kind of experience, the dealer model works really, really well,
Hmm.
even though there may be rough edges around here and there. And I think some customers are starting to realize that.
I hear you. Well, this was a really nice chat. Thank you so much for your time, Jim. Am I going to see you at Pebble Beach this year? Will you be up there?
Yes, I'm a technical judge on American Classics, and I'll be at Monterey racing my Cobra, and I drive it
Nice.
illegally on the road. It's from my garage where you are
Don't you
to
have
the
an M
racetrack and
plate? Can't,
back.
can't you just put an M plate on it and call it a day? You don't have to
I
drive it
should.
illegally.
I
You
don't
have
even put a plate on it. My
you
son and
have
I
the
jump
resources
in
of
there late at
Ford.
night on Thursday, and we drive it down Highway 68 to Laguna and hope there's no CHP officers.
No, but nobody cares. I mean, no,
They
nobody,
don't care.
no one gives a shit during Pebble Week. You can drive anything on the road. It's you.
You're totally
know.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
I'll
be
hear
there,
you. I'm sure.
and I can't wait to see you, and hopefully we'll see you at Dawn Patrol as well.
Of course, yes, I will. I will. Are you? Oh, are you going to be? Are you going to be driving something on the tour?
I have a 37K Lincoln
Oh, cool.
LeBaron Coupe, and I was going to drive it on the tour, but I'm going to pass and do a road trip with my 16-year-old son in Oregon and California this summer.
That sounds fun. That sounds like a
Yeah.
good time. If you need someone to drive it on the tour, I will. I'm busy, but we'll see. Maybe.
No, seriously, I have a bunch of cars. Please
Oh
come
wow,
over.
is that
I
it?
want
Hold
you
on,
to-
is it? Zach has got a picture. Is this it?
Yeah.
This is
Oh
Yeah,
man, that
that-
looks awesome.
It is, and we only made 7 of these.
That's
That is
kick-ass.
one of 7, and went for black wall tires and lowered the front about an inch, and cargo 75 all day long, and it is fantastic. I love
And
it.
is that part of Ford's collection, or is that a Jim Farley car?
No, that's mine. I have
Oh,
a
that
73
rules.
in Detroit. I have a 73 Bronco. I have my Celine Mustang. I have my Lincoln, and hopefully my GTD sometime soon.
Wow. Well, that Lincoln is sexy, man.
Isn't it cool?
That's awesome. What a great
Yeah.
looking car.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
So I'll have a few of those cars out. So honestly, I
Cool.
really mean this. I'd be really upset if you didn't take one of my cars for the week and put some miles on it.
Put me down for the Lincoln. Celine, second place. I love
right.
me a Celine Fox. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Jim. Have a great rest of your day. We'll see you in August at Pebble. I really appreciate it.
Love what you guys do. Thanks for keeping us honest and as leaders in the industry, and thanks for continue to celebrate that passion for our industry. You're really special to me and to others like us, and thank you for this opportunity to kind of demystify things.
Our pleasure, man. Absolutely, our pleasure. We'll talk to you soon, okay? And
Okay.
thank you to the suits hiding behind the camera too. I know they're
They're
I know
all
they're
here.
back. I know they're back there being like
They're passing me notes. Do
yeah,
not
yeah, they're
say this.
they're going. God, yeah. All right, see you in August, Jim. Bye.
Take care, you guys. All the best.